Hi, this is Lauren from the Napa County Seed Library. Today, we have another edition of our Easy Seed Saving series. I wonder if you can guess what seed we're going to save this time. If you recognize this beautiful bloom, Grandpa Ott's morning glory, then you're right. We've got a lot of seeds to save, and in this video, you'll even get into some of the techniques about using screens to clean your seeds. So let's get started.
Before we get into harvest some seeds, I wanted to give you some basics about when to harvest the seeds. Because oftentimes people are asking me, what's the right time to harvest this flower or that fruit or this particular perennial? The key to harvesting any kind of seed is to notice what stage it's in as it's growing on the plant. So at harvest, you want to make sure that your seeds are dry, brittle, and brown. That's step one. These morning glory seeds I've noticed for quite several weeks now. Why? Because I've been enjoying the plant producing its vine-like habit and all the beautiful blooms that have been coming up over this trellis that I made. Then I started noticing as each of the flowers dropped off, they left behind seed pods. The seed pods were initially green, and then they began to turn brown. When they began to be hard and brittle, I handled them, noticed the seeds inside, and thought, that's when these seeds are ready. So remember, when you're harvesting any seed that produces a dry pod, you're looking for it to be extremely dry, brittle, and brown. That's not true of wet seeds, but we're not dealing with wet seeds today. We'll talk about that in another video. After you've collected seeds, you want to make sure that you continue to cure the seeds. This step ensures that the fully matured seeds, which you knew that they are fully mature because you didn't collect them until they were dry, brittle, and brown. So those fully mature seeds will continue to cure in its pod or in its casing so that they remain dry in a place where you have adequate airflow and that they're protected. This is important because seeds do best when they're at their driest state in order to regenerate them at the next season. So you're going to store them in something like a paper bag, even one of those wine bags that have a lot of, you can tell, they're kind of mesh bags. They have some airflow to them. This is fine for storing some seeds in that you want to continue to dry in a safe and a protected and dark place. I've got this mesh bag for the morning glories. It's kind of like one of those little bags that you get for gifts or anything like that. This is going to be great to provide airflow through it as well. At the point that you want to store your seeds for long term, you're going to want it to get something like a glass jar. You can also use a plastic tub. I think the glass jar is superior because this plastic tub might hold a little bit of humidity in it when closed, whereas the glass jar tends not to do that. If it does, you can see it form on the inside of the glass. So in either case, you're going to want to put dessicant packets inside the plastic tub or the glass jar to remove any excess moisture inside the container. So for long-term storage of the seeds, at some point, you're going to remove them from this container like a mesh bag or a paper bag and put them in something like a jar or a plastic tub. This is going to further protect them from anything like tiny insects, bugs, weevils. We all know them, cockroaches. They can get into areas of our garage, just in our storage pantries that, again, they're alive. They've got lots of nutrition, these seeds. And so bugs, insects, rodents, cockroaches, they would love to get in there and nibble on them if they're not fully protected. So glass jar, plastic tub, don't forget the dessicant packets. So one more time, at harvest, you want to make sure your plants are dry, brittle, and brown. You want to notice the seeds, if they're the kinds of seeds that are not contained inside a fruit, so they're not a wet seed, they're also dry, brittle, and brown. For the curing stage, after you've collected your seeds in some kind of bag made of mesh, paper, muslin, what have you, you're going to cure them in a place that's dry, that has a little bit of airflow. It can be cool airflow to warm airflow, but not hot. And you're going to make sure they're protected. You want to protect them from any kind of excessive sunlight, heat, or bugs, insects, rodents digging into your bags and munching on your seeds. For longer term storage, you want to make sure they're in a cool, dark, and dry place. You might want to switch them out of the paper bags, the muslin bags, the mesh bags, and into something like a jar, glass jar, or a plastic tub, making sure that you have continued to remove any excess moisture from where your seeds are being stored by adding something like a dessicant packet. Remember, in the optimal storage conditions, right after you've harvested and as you've continued to cure and store them, you want to protect them from bugs and animals. So we don't want that. We don't want that. We also want to protect them from excess sunlight and humidity. We don't want excess sunlight and we don't want excess humidity in our seed storage containers. So that's the basics of when to harvest, what key conditions you're looking for on the plant, how to cure your seeds while they're continuing to dry, how to store your seeds for long term, and how to protect your seeds in all of those phases. So let's get collecting these seeds. Take a closer look at these seeds in my hand. And as you can see, you can pop these open really easily. The dark black seeds, which are a really nice contrast with the pods that they were in, are about as big as maybe a peppercorn. And the beautiful flower pods kind of open up to reveal a really beautiful triangle pattern with the seeds and where they were held. Little tiny houses for these seeds. They were dropping in my bowl, just like that. And as you can see, they were dropping on the mat too. So now that I've got a great big bowl of seeds, I've still got stems and some leaves on them, certainly the pods. I can toss some of these aside if they're free enough. But it's really not going to matter, as I'm going to use this seed cleaning screen in order to get rid of all of the plant material that isn't seed, that's called chaff, and just leave behind the seeds. And I'm just gently rubbing all the seed material against the seed cleaning screen in order to release the seed inside this mesh. It's quite amazing how easily this gets done. The seed isn't going through. These are seeds that dropped into this bin while I was collecting them. It's staying on top. I can get a bigger mesh screen in order to collect all the rest of the small chaff away from the seeds. But this part is big enough for me to just remove off of the top. So I'm just going to make sure I'm rubbing it. And then we're going to get rid of this off of the top. Leaving behind the seed. Sometimes this can be a little bit diligent work, but it's really fun. This is great for kids to do. Tiny hands are wonderful for seed work. But let me get a bigger seed cleaning screen and show you how it can separate this further. So these are seed cleaning screens, and they're at different mesh gauges that allow different size seeds to come through those holes. Let's switch to a higher gauge screen, meaning it's going to let the seeds in and keep the chaff out. I'll do this one more time. There's more of the seed with some little bits of the chaff in there. And most of the bigger pieces are on top of this screen. Now these seeds are pretty heavy and the chaff is fairly light. So the last thing we could do was to use a fan to blow off the chaff that's very light and let the seeds drop down to the ground. Let's try it. Okay, now we've come to the end of our seed saving effort. We assessed whether or not our plant was ready to harvest seed from. It was dry, brittle, and brown, so it was ready. We collected our seed. We made sure we got some storing uh, materials in order for it to cure well, taking care that we had some long-term storage jars available, including the dessicant packets that will help us keep the seeds dry and free from excess moisture while it's either curing or in long-term storage. Then we took a few more steps to get rid of the chaff, which is the extra plant material from the seed. We did that by using some good old-fashioned hand rubbing. We used some seed cleaning screens. Then we used the power of the wind with a fan to get the rest of the chaff off of the seed. So we have just about pure seed here. There's a little pieces of chaff in there. That's okay. Amazing. This part I want to go over because it is probably the most important part of saving seeds. And that is to label, label, label. It's very, very important that you label what seed you've saved. So I'm going to go over what information you should include in your seed saving label, whether you're saving it for yourself at home, you're going to share it with your neighbors, especially if you're going to donate it to the Napa County Seed Library. We really do need all this information, as much as you can fill out, before you send us seeds to donate. So first off, crop type. That means you're going to indicate whether you have flower, herb, vegetable, a medicinal plant saved seed, a California native saved seed. We want to know that crop type. Then we want to know a crop name. This is its common name, the name that you know it by, the name that if you told somebody else, they would recognize it. Corn, marigold, parsley, those are some examples of a common crop name. Next, we want to know its scientific name. This is optional, but the scientific name can easily be looked up online. The scientific name is a two-part name. The first part of the name is its genus. The second part is its species name. So corn in Latin is Z. maize. When you look it up, you're going to find they're going to have all kinds of interesting spellings. It's because it's in Latin. Do your best. If you're interested in this, please do include it. Next, we want to know its location of harvest. Napa, California is where we would love to find you donating and collecting seeds, because that means they would have been potentially locally adapted. Locally adapted seeds are seeds that have grown up in Napa County for at least 2 years or more. You then want to include the date collected. Month and year is terrific. If you don't know the month, the year is vital. Seeds are usually good when stored properly in a cool, dark, dry location, free from humidity, free from damage from pests, birds, insects, rodents, you name it, for at least 3 to 5 years. Longer, 7 years to up to 20 years if you've got it stored in a place like a refrigerator or a freezer. Next, we want to know who the seed saver is. In this case, I saved this morning glory seed. First initial, last name is great. First name is great. We just want to identify the seed with a donor. Next, we want to know the original source of the seed. This could have come from a packet, like a Renee's Garden Seeds packet. It could have come from a transplant, like something you bought at Osh. Maybe you bought some peppers there or tomatoes there. We'd love to know the name of the original source. And if you're keeping these seeds for yourself, it's good to keep track of where you originally got the seeds. In case the seeds are no good, you can go back to the source and get some more. Then, any kind of notes you want to add to your label can be very helpful. Some of these notes can include some interesting things that happened when you were growing the plant, what kind of weather conditions were pertinent, whether or not you had one plant in shade, one plant in sun, and then the plant in sun did better as far as producing the seed, whether or not this seed has been saved for generations in your family. Any interesting gardening notes or notes that have to do with the story of the seed are really important to include in your label. So here's what a correctly filled seed saving label looks like. For this particular seed that we saved, the type is a flower. The name is Morning Glory. The variety is Grandpa Ott. You don't need to know the variety, but in this case, I did. The scientific name is Ipomea violacea. You don't have to say it out loud, just spell it correctly and we'll get it. This was located and harvested in Napa, California, in my front yard. The date collected was August. Today's the 22nd, but August 2022 is what's going to go on the label. The seed saver is myself. The original source was a transplant from Van Windens. I think I got about 3 of them. The notes that I'm going to include are that they're beautiful, deep purple blooms. This was a year that was the first transplant for the seed. So it's the second year that it's going to be growing up. The plant has a vining habit. So that's it. This kind of information on your label when you save the seed will really help you identify and key in to the time when you save that seed. So I've included the same information on a little 3x5 card in this mesh bag where I'm going to put the seeds. Some other handy tools are a little funnel, small, big. I'm going to choose the big one. And there they go. Quite a lot of seed. This is probably a good 10 packets worth of seed. So I hope you like this video. Lots of the same information is going to hold true for other types of seed that you're saved, especially how to create a seed label for the seeds you've saved, and how to assess when is the right time to harvest your seed, how to store your seed for curing, and then how to put your seed into a longer term storage in jars or these little plastic buckets with dessicant packets. You want to make sure that your seed continues to dry well. I'm going to hang this up at a high place in the breezeway of my outdoor area so that it's up and away from any pests that are roaming around on the ground. And it's going to continue to dry here until I'm ready to put it into a jar like this for long-term storage. Let me know in the comments how you like this video. Let me know if you have any questions, and look forward to the next installment of Easy Seed Saving, where I'm going to talk to you about saving bean seeds. Thanks so much. Bye for now. This is Lauren from the Napa County Seed Library.